Hilary Lane is here with the potential dangers to students when no nurse is available. Hilary, good morning.
John, good morning. The role of the school nurse is more critical than ever, with a quarter of all young children suffering some kind of chronic illness like asthma and diabetes.
Here at LaGuardia Airport, the tarmac got so crowded there was eventually a ground stop. That meant the airport was temporarily closed to flights heading here from other cities. In describing his views on Kavanaugh, President Trump said he too has been falsely accused. The mayor of Pittsburgh called Saturday the darkest day in the city's history, but says the answer is not putting an armed guard in every house of worship. The remaining 8 victims will be buried in the next few days. It's tradition for Jews to be buried as soon as possible, but because of the investigation, the families had to wait several days.
Experts say eating while working is actually good for some people, driving the energy back into their work while also helping them focus. But that's not the case for everyone.
Actor Robert De Niro was another target of one of the packages. Police say it was sent to his production studio right here in the Tribeca neighborhood of Manhattan.
Experts are reminding everyone to be careful while handling raw turkey in the kitchen. That begins by thawing in the refrigerator and not on the counter.
Here in Panama City Beach, the wind and rain have been brutal all day. At points, it's hard to stand up straight. Officials say former President Bill Clinton is at home, but Mrs. Clinton is not. She's campaigning for Democrats in Florida. Just up the coast in Panama City Beach, Hurricane Michael leveled this family-owned shopping center.
Authorities announced murder charges Thursday in last week's deadly mansion fire in New Jersey. Prosecutors say 51-year-old Paul Canero killed his younger brother Keith, Keith's wife, and the couple's 2 young children before setting their home on fire.
Defendant repeatedly shot and killed his brother while he was outside of the side of his home, and then moved to murder the rest of the family inside the home.
Paul Canero has been in custody since he was charged last week with arson for setting his own house on fire on the same day while his family was asleep.
Prosecutors say Canero started the fire here at his brother's mansion to cover up the murders. They say he then removed some evidence, went back to his own home, and set the fire there.
That fire was effectively a ruse designed to make it appear as if the overall Canero family was somehow targeted.
The brothers were business partners in a computer company and a pest control company. Paul Canero has a court appearance Friday. He faces life in prison if convicted. Hilary Lane, CBS News, Colts Neck, New Jersey.
Day 4 of our School Matters series this week, we examine what some are calling a growing national crisis, the shortage of school nurses. Only 3 out of 5 schools across the country have full-time school nurses. This often forces school administrators with no medical training to step in and provide some level of care. Hilary Lane is here with the potential dangers to students when no nurse is available. Hilary, good morning.
John, good morning. The role of the school nurse is more critical than ever, with a quarter of all young children suffering some kind of chronic illness like asthma and diabetes. Over the past several years, multiple children have died after facing medical emergencies in their schools when no nurse was on duty. Parents and nurse advocates now want to see that changed.
Did the school district fail your child?
Yeah, they failed him always. Like, they weren't there to help him.
Last October, Rasheen Presley's 9-year-old son, Hassan, collapsed in the school cafeteria. He was rushed to the hospital where he was later pronounced dead of heart failure.
What went through your mind in those last moments?
It was my only son. I want nobody there to help me. Nothing.
There was no school nurse on duty that day. According to a Philadelphia school district official, staff certified in CPR tried to revive Hassan, who'd been born with a heart defect. It's unknown had a school nurse been there that day if they would have been able to save Rasheen's son.
Do you think things would have been different if there was a school nurse there that day?
I think so. Never know.
Kareem Presley is the boy's uncle.
It's the hardest. You just gotta be tough. It hurt me because he's not here.
Did Miss Millie talk to you before?
There are no federal laws regulating school nurse staffing, but the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends at least 1 registered nurse in every school, a standard many districts are failing to meet.
That is a crisis.
Donna Mazik, the executive director of the National Association of School Nurses, says 40% of schools across the country don't have a full-time nurse, and 25% don't have a nurse at all.
Is that acceptable?
It's not acceptable. Students deserve what they need in order to be in school and ready to learn.
Mazik blames shrinking budgets for the shortfall, which she says increases the burden on existing nurses and puts kids at risk.
If you have a workload that doesn't enable you to care for the students in the way they need, it's like drinking water from a fire hose.
So now time for school number 2.
Yes, we'll go to Bushy Park, my elementary school.
Deanie Gorby-Crease is a school nurse in Howard County, Maryland, who covers 2 schools a day.
I'm often stressed because I have to figure out the safest way to balance it.
She has health assistants at each school who call her with questions when she's not in the building.
If I'm busy with an emergency at my other school, I'm not available right away, so it might delay their care some.
As a school nurse, do you feel like you're stretched too thin?
I think so. I would love to be able to be in one place so that I could provide the care that the kids need. I also think that I would get to know the kids a lot better.
Look at my nose.
In Cincinnati, Ohio, where nurses were also sometimes covering more than one school, they're tackling the problem through a partnership with Cincinnati Children's Hospital.
We now are able to provide routine primary care services for all of the students in the building as well as any child in the community.
They've opened health centers in schools to close the gap.
So students get services here no different than they do in a pediatrician's office.
In the wake of his son's death, Rasheen Presley says schools must find a way to provide care for all students.
If you ain't got no nurses at the school, you might as well teach your kids at home. That's just common sense.
The Philadelphia School District is working with a local hospital to determine if and what kind of additional health support is needed in the schools. And next month, a bill will be reintroduced in Washington called the Nurse Act. It would provide grants for schools to hire nurses.
Good. Our priorities need to change. This is an issue.
Heart goes out to the Presleys. Listen, they said, listen, we don't know if the nurse would have made a difference, but at least you would have known everything would have been done to help them try.
Thank you.
And that's what's so upsetting.
They say a school nurse just should have been there.
Exactly.
In the kitchen at her restaurant in Syracuse, New York, Clara Cedeno is working to fulfill a childhood dream.
I'm keeping it together in this moment, but yeah, there have been a lot of tears shed, a lot of stress. This is everything for me.
She quit her job in tech to open the Latin American restaurant La Patria just 2 months ago.
Here you go, ladies.
She was expecting a loan from the Small Business Administration, but because of the government shutdown, no new applications are being processed. She says she is 1 week away from not having enough money to pay her food suppliers.
And if I can't feed my customers, then I have no customers. And if I get no customers, I can't pay my staff. And if I have no staff, there is no business.
With no end to the shutdown in sight, Cedeno is talking with her bank about alternatives.
There's that fear of letting the people down that work for me. It's the fear of letting the people down that are rooting for me.
Cedeno's customers say it's sad to see a local business struggling because of the shutdown.
It's disappointing to hear. You know, I mean, you want your local businesses to flourish.
What is your message from Syracuse, New York to lawmakers in Washington, D.C.?
We're the ones who keep our communities alive and breathing every day because we show up every day. And if we don't have, you know, the funding is like oxygen for us, right? And if we don't have that oxygen, then we die off.
Even when the government is fully funded, Cedeno is worried there will be a backlog at the Small Business Administration, further delaying the loan she needs to keep the doors open. The bagel store in Brooklyn is an international destination thanks to these colorful creations, Rainbow Bagels. Sam Monday and her friends are visiting from England.
Well, we were looking at interesting things to do around the area. And then my friend mentioned that she saw this on Instagram.
And they didn't just come to eat them. They also made sure to take photos for social media.
And they look so different. We've never seen these before, anywhere. So it's pretty amazing.
With more and more people posting their food on Instagram, more and more businesses are coming up with share-worthy dishes.
You need even more chocolate now?
Oh, yeah.
At Clinton Hall in New York, this supersized red velvet waffle is a mouth-watering hit on social media.
If you're gonna do red velvet waffles, you might as well do the red velvet cake to put it on top to make it extravagant.
Joey Skladany, managing editor at Chowhound, says photos of outrageous food dishes often go viral, sending restaurants more customers.
This millennial generation loves to photograph their food, so if something just looks pretty, they want to kind of take part in this cultural, societal trend and go to the restaurant and show that they took part in it.
Traffic to the bagel store has skyrocketed since the rainbow bagels made a splash on social media. Reagan Curry is visiting from Florida.
What are your followers going to think about your rainbow bagel photos?
I'll probably get a couple "I'm jealous" comments, or "Did you bring me some" comments.
A colorful marketing twist that's turning into green for many businesses. Hilary Lane, CBS News, New York.